Eli Manning snubbed from the Pro Bowl and the Eagles win the Super Bowl. God help us, Giants fans. Welcome back to the Empire State Sports Report, where we talk all things Giants, Yankees, and Mets. I'm your host, Adrianna. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's here on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all the things, because it is now officially the offseason for football, but it's also the start of the baseball season. So we are going to have a lot to talk about sports-wise. So let's go ahead and get into it. Today's episode is going to be strictly about the Giants, the Super Bowl, football. And then the episode later this week is going to be with Jake Brown Radio, and we are going to talk all things New York Mets. So get excited for that one for my Mets fans. It's coming up later this week. So make sure you subscribe so you know when it's coming out. The Giants can't have anything go their way. Literally anything. Two good things cannot happen in a row for them, okay? The Eagles making the Super Bowl is one thing, okay? They're playing the Chiefs, and, I think a lot of us felt like we hate both teams, right? For a multitude of different reasons. But we're going into that and we're like, you know what? Eli Manning is going to save us. He is the only person who can save us Giants fans from total misery. He's 3-0 against his brother in the Pro Bowl. Amazing. Then during the Super Bowl, he wins the kicking contest. The guy can do no wrong, okay? Except everyone seems to have some stupid ass bone to pick with him because he's a Manning. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know what these BS reasons are for not putting Eli Manning in the Hall of Fame, but they're all garbage. Garbage at the end of the day. And before anyone who's not a Giants fan comes in here and goes, well, Eli Manning doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame and blah, 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 blah. Tell me why, okay? I'm going to give you all the reasons why he does belong in the Hall of Fame. And for everyone who is like, well, he has a 500 record. First of all, that's a bullshit reason. Second of all, there are players in the Hall of Fame who have a 500 record or less. So what? Their stats were that much better that just got them in? Eli Manning doesn't have bad stats. In fact, I went through all of the quarterbacks that are in the Hall of Fame, and he has more passing yards, a better touchdown to interception ratio, and better completion percentage than most of the quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame, especially more than Troy Aikman. So what's the problem here? What is the real problem? It's so ridiculous, and I hate the argument that he has a 500 record because the last time I checked, the quarterback, while it is the most important position on the field, they don't do everything. They don't play defense. They don't kick field goals. They don't catch the ball. They don't sack players. They don't block. They don't do anything except throw the ball and run the ball and make good decisions. And Eli Manning was one of the best, if not the best, clutch players in the postseason of all time. If you're in the Super Bowl and you're down to the final wire, most people are picking Eli Manning over any other quarterback. And that should be enough of the argument. And don't get me started on the whole Tom Brady situation, because we all know that when you talk about the history of the NFL, you know who's going to be mentioned first? It's Tom Brady. You know who should be mentioned? And Bill Belichick, fine. Who should be mentioned right after that is Eli Manning, because Eli Manning is the only quarterback in the history of the NFL, as we know, to beat Tom Brady. Not once, but twice. The only one. And Tom Brady is going to go down with Lawrence Taylor as two of the best players that ever played in the NFL. And there is one person and one person only who beat him. It's Alicia Manning. Like, I just don't understand this stupid bias. Oh, the only reason he's even in it for the Hall of Fame is because of his brother, because he's a Manning, blah, blah. That's not why. It's because he was a fucking good football player. And if you watch Giants football and you watch the postseason runs and you watch the Super Bowls, you would know that and you would see it. The thing about Eli is that he, especially in those two Super Bowl runs, did not have a top 5 defense, did not have a top 10 defense. In fact, both of those Super Bowls, his defenses were in the bottom half of the league. The bottom half. So yes, they came to play that day, just like the Eagles defense came to play on Sunday. But you know who else also played really well and lit it up and played well when it mattered was Eli Manning. Do you know how hard the Manningham throw is? The Tyree catch, unbelievable. Overthrown. Sure. He made the play. Eli led them down the field when it mattered. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't make stupid decisions. And he got the ball in the players' hands where they deserve to be. And it's just absolutely wild to me, the people that make the stupid arguments. The 500 record is such a joke and needs to be removed from the equation. Because if Eli retired a year or two earlier, or if Dave Gettleman wasn't an absolute moron and knew how to build an offensive line, even 50% better than what he did, then Eli's stats wouldn't be what they were in the last 2 years, which is why he has a 500 record. Not his fault. He had shit around him for years and got sacked 100 times. You know who got sacked 5 times in the Super Bowl, which was the most ever? Patrick Mahomes. And you know what he did? Absolute shit. So hard to be a really good football player when you get sacked 1,000,000 times. I will never defend Patrick Mahomes, but that was a fair comparison. No, maybe not really, but you know what I was trying to say, okay? Anyway, I think, as we all know, it's total bullshit. Eli Manning deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And, you know, he's still top 10 in passing yards. He's top 10 in the NFL history for, I think it's passing touchdowns. Like, his statistics still are in the top 10 for some of them across the board now. When you've got guys like these other incredible quarterbacks playing, he's still there. And you know what? He's only one of six. I want you to think about this for a second, okay? There are 100 years of the Giants, 100 plus years of the NFL. Only 6 players have 2 Super Bowl MVPs. 6. You know who's one of them? Eli fucking Manning, okay? Like, that's it. That's the discussion. And anyone trying to make some stupid argument, oh, he doesn't deserve it, is full of shit, okay? I'm going to be in Canton when Eli gets there, and it should be soon. And it should have been this year, and it's absolute BS that it's not. Pat Hanlon and I agree on something. Absolute BS that he was not put in there. Anyway, let's talk about the Super Bowl, shall we? There are 2 good things that came out of the Super Bowl. The first one is that most people, I think, have fully understood what an absolute star Kendrick Lamar is. That guy is diabolical, genius, incredible. And it's about time that everyone knows it. And my problem is people who are like, oh, well, Kanye West is a genius, and we should all bypass all of the insane shit that he's doing, like selling a swastika shirt on his fucking website right now. Yeah, that's a true fact. Horrifying, but true. But Kanye West is allowed to be an evil genius and blah, blah. And then you've got Kendrick Lamar, who comes out yesterday with the most epic Super Bowl. If you listen to the words that he said, if you paid attention to what was going on during the Super Bowl halftime, he is a genius. He's unbelievable. Him calling out Drake on national television, the way that he looked into the camera and said, say Drake, the man is diabolical. And I am so here for it. It's incredible work. Unbelievable. I saw the funniest meme that was like, the biggest thing I've learned from Kendrick Lamar is that I am absolutely not a hater enough. And I thought that was hysterical because I'm like, him and Drake's beef is so, I mean, if you know the full story behind it, and I went on like a full research assignment on this and learned the full backstory. And it comes from, it comes from a place that makes sense, right? Like, I get where Kendrick is coming from, but the fact that he's not letting it go and he is on national television just calling out Drake for him liking young girls is diabolical behavior. I salute him for it. It's impeccable work. So anyway, I hope that everyone gets on the Kendrick Lamar train. Also a fantastic performer. Love it. The second good thing that came out of it, for us as Giants fans specifically, was that Saquon was not named MVP. And I think that I know that there were people rooting for Saquon, and I understand you wanting to root for him, but rooting for the Eagles as a whole is absolutely despicable behavior. So I get you wanted Saquon to do well. I think I know the people who are like, well, I want Saquon to do well, but I wanted the Chiefs to win. Okay, but like, just stop, like it's fine. You didn't have to admit that out loud. I think it's kind of, I don't know, does this make it better or worse that Saquon did not have a great game, so he was not named the MVP? In my mind, it makes it a little bit better because it just, that if Saquon went off and had 200 rushing yards yesterday and he came out and was a Super Bowl MVP, the people who would be talking about that today, every single time it would be about the Giants. It wouldn't be, oh, well, Saquon's a superstar player and look what he can do behind this amazing offensive line. And, he's able to do that because he has a good offensive line. And look at the fucking defense. Look at how they shut down Kansas City. Okay. It's not just Saquon winning the game for them yesterday, which we obviously saw. They are a stacked football team, which is also very scary for us as Giants fans. But Saquon is just a piece of that, right? They have talent from top to bottom. It's honestly disgusting. I don't know how they do it. All I know is that the Giants need to take intensive courses from Howie Roseman because they seem to have figured it out and the Giants have not. So that's something that needs to be worked on immediately. But I think, I think it's a relief for probably most of us that he wasn't MVP because you just know. And then it's not about Saquon being MVP. It's about, oh, well, the Giants are so stupid. They gave up Saquon. And it's like, just appreciate Saquon for what he is. He never would have been able to do that here. And that's just a fact. It is what it is because we had poor roster building for years and years and years. And you know what? Unfortunately, as fans, we have to deal with the consequences of that. And it's not our fault, but it is what it is. So anyway, the Eagles have won. Jalen Hurts was the MVP. And listen, that team was unbelievable last night. And like I said, I think we all are like, this is a little scary because they are so good and we are going to be stuck with them for a long time. But what I want to talk about is that they are going to have some key free agents this offseason. And the reality is they can't sign everyone. So I want to talk about one player, specifically defensive tackle Milton Williams, who absolutely went wild last night. He had 4 tackles, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but he also had 2 sacks and a forced fumble. And that forced fumble was the one that essentially ended the game. So he is a guy that came up when it mattered. And this is the thing about Eli, too, that we can always tie back into the conversation with a nice big bow, is you have to be able to come through when it matters. And there was a lot of conversation about Jaden Daniels about this, right? That when, his back was against the wall, and he was this close to losing games, he was able to lead the team down a game-winning drive, and he was calm, cool, and collected under pressure. And that's what you want out of a quarterback, right? And even Jalen Hurts, who's got all the time in the world back there, it's easy to say when you have the obviously most talented roster in the NFL. Everyone is essentially healthy. And on top of that, you've got an offensive line who can let you meditate back there if you really wanted to. So that helps. But, we want guys who come up big in key moments, and Milton Williams is one of them. Now, him and Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat, okay, they've got 3 players on their defensive line who are going to be free agents. Now, the reality is they're not keeping all of them. So I think we all know Brandon Graham quite well. I think he's probably going to be a guy that could be targeted in free agency if the Eagles don't bring him back. He will be targeted. The question is, how much is he's going to be going for? What are the Giants going to be able to realistically afford, and this and that? So here are the rest of the key free agents. Linebacker Zach Bond, who also had a good night last night. We all know Mekhi Becton and his story. I think that they're probably going to keep him. How could you not? But a really great football player. If he's available, that's a guy, I want the Giants to go after offensive line. That is my 3rd position in free agency that the Giants must tackle, whether it's a tackle or a guard. See what I did there? Speaking of guards, Fred Johnson is going to be available. Cornerback Avante Maddox, long snapper Rick Lovato, running back Keith Gainwell, linebacker Oren Burks, tight end CJ Uzama, offensive tackle Jack Driscoll, center Nick Bates, another guy we all know, and OT LaRaven Clark. So they have a lot of guys that are going to be free agents. I would love the Giants to go after one of these players because obviously we saw what they did and what they have done all season. And The Eagles, to me, from a talent perspective, I feel the same way about the Lions, are like UGA to me too, where University of Georgia, they just always seem to be doing everything right. And once players get there, they skyrocket, become 100 times better football players, do well in the NFL, and they likely go to the Eagles. And just the talent that they get and develop is something the Giants are not familiar with. So if we can take someone that has gone from the dark side, take them over to the light side, and take the talent with them, because we need that. Speaking of free agents, let's go to the Chiefs, because the Chiefs also are going to have a lot of free agents this offseason. Obviously, we all know guard Trey Smith, a lot of hype around him, probably going to be the most expensive offensive line player who gets a lot of money in free agency. Linebacker Nick Bolton, safety Justin Reed, wide receiver Marquise Brown, wide receiver Andre Hopkins, defensive lineman Charles Omenihu, defensive lineman Tershawn Wharton, running back Kareem Hunt, wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, wide receiver Justin Watson, wide receiver McCole Hartman, offensive tackle DJ Humphries, defensive tackle Mike Pennell, running back Samaje Perine, defensive lineman Josh Uche, defensive lineman Derek Noddy, long snapper James Winchester, and quarterback Carson Wentz. I guarantee you, out of this whole list, you know the one player that I absolutely under no circumstances want the Giants to take, and that is Carson Wentz. Anyway, the Chiefs also have a lot of free agent players. So I have talked about this, and I'm curious to see if, as time goes on, if you guys have changed your stance at all on who your top targets are in free agency. For me, it's the same as it was before. It's a quarterback, cornerback, and either offensive tackle or guard. I really just feel like, I do feel like the Giants need to get back to building through the trenches, which is building up the offensive line and building up the defensive line. But the fact that this draft class is so rich in good defensive lineman prospects makes me feel like we're better off with a veteran offensive lineman in free agency, and then you can get a rookie defensive lineman in the draft and help build up the lines that way. Obviously, we know that cornerbacks are extremely important in the NFL. I really feel like the Giants need a veteran desperately. The cornerbacks are very young and need some help. And they need some help from a player who gets it, who's going to come in and be a leader, and who's going to help develop these players. And, I think that guys like Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns are like that. But I think for the secondary room specifically, you need someone who is capable of doing that. I think Justin Reed could be an option. I think Byron Murphy could be a good option. I think there are going to be other options out there. And I think the Giants, that is a position, in my opinion, that they must target in free agency. And I know that there are a lot of people who really want Travis Hunter, and I get that. My opinion on Travis Hunter, and I was on board with Travis Hunter a while ago, but I have switched gears on this for a couple reasons. Number one being, I think the coaching staff is going to force him to play one position or the other. And my problem with that is two things. They force him into a wide receiver only role. I am not, after picking a wide receiver 6th overall last year, I am under no circumstances picking a wide receiver 3 overall this year. Makes absolutely no sense. Now, on the flip side of that is, if they force him to be a cornerback, do I think he's going to be a good cornerback? Yes. My problem is that the cornerback room is so young and there's no veteran presence there. I think if you're going to go after someone like a Travis Hunter, you're not willing to spend money on a good veteran cornerback in free agency. And in my opinion, I think that's the wrong move. So let me know what you guys think about Travis Hunter, because I really see mixed opinions on this. That's my personal one. Like I said, it has changed over the last couple months. And from what I've seen watching other teams and what I have seen with this Giants team, and what I just really feel like is the right move moving forward. At number 3, this is what I feel like the Giants have to do. It either has to be Cam Ward or Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter, not Sanders. And here's my reasoning behind that. And again, curious to hear what you guys have to say. Under no circumstances am I trading from 3 to 1 to get Cam Ward. Do I love Cam Ward? Yes. The reason I am not willing to do that is because they're going to have to give up a 2026 first rounder. And I don't care who is in the front office next year. If you're lucky and you get Cam Ward at 3, I don't give a shit. You still draft a quarterback next year, and it maybe doesn't have to be the first round, but I am not on board with trading a future first rounder in a draft class that you know is going to be way better from a quarterback perspective than this draft class is going to be, on someone who, yes, is one of the better quarterbacks coming out, but the reality is he's not Jaden Daniels and he's not Drake May. So you're still talking about, yes, a quarterback who's probably going to have, good quarterback play, but I just am not willing to do that, not for next year's draft class. And my other reasoning for this outside of that is they're going to sign a veteran quarterback in free agency. And whether they draft Sanders or Ward, let's just say hypothetically they get lucky and they get one of them at 3. They're not starting one of those players week 1. You're still starting the veteran quarterback. So why would I trade up for Cam Ward or Sanders only for him not to play until likely week 7, week 10? I will be shocked. Absolutely shocked. And maybe I'm wrong about this and they have a different plan. And obviously I don't know what they're thinking, but I just would be shocked if they started a rookie quarterback any earlier than week 7. I just don't see it happening. Again, you're not talking about Jaden Daniels and Drake May. You're talking about players who Sanders is one of the two who is a little bit more NFL ready. It's not necessarily about that for me. It's about the fact that this roster is an absolute cluster and we have no idea what they're going to look like week 1. And last year, this team started playing better week 3, week 4, week 5. Like we started to see the slightest bit better of football play. But the way that this team moves and the way that they never, ever come out week 1 and light up the field and look like they know what the fuck they're doing and look like they are a competent football team, that is enough for me to never start a rookie quarterback. I don't care if it's Jaden Daniels. He's damn good. We all know that. Under no circumstances would I have started him week 1 last year, knowing what our roster was. And again, this upcoming season, knowing what this roster is. And ideally, yes, it's going to get better in free agency in the draft. And I have hope for that because I don't want to be wildly depressed for the next 10 months. But I think that even if they do that, they are not going to win a lot of games this year. I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't think it's happening. And I think there's so much work that needs to be done. And I think from a fan's perspective, like I need to see it to believe it with this team because I used to do the opposite. And now, no, I've lost the belief. I got to see it with my own 2 eyes. And then I will believe that the team's headed in the right direction and they're a good football team and they're going to win games. Not there right now. Probably won't be after free agency or in the draft, but realistically, I think I will feel better that they are in a maybe better position upcoming than they are now. Breaking news, just saw a tweet from Adam Schefter, and I think we could cut it off with the draft talk there for a minute because it's going to be draft talk a lot for the next 2 months. So let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments about the draft. What do you want at 3? Do you agree with my quarterbacks synopsis and Travis Hunter thing? I know everyone has different opinions, so let me know. We can converse kindly. So yeah, okay, let's cut it off there. Giants are hiring former Jaguars and Bills wide receiver coach Chad Hall as their assistant quarterbacks coach. Hall now reunites with his former Bills colleagues. What a surprise! Another Bills guy. Head coach Brian Daboll and GM Joe Schoen in New York. Hall is also the brother-in-law of current Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford. Now, let's end the podcast on this note because I know there was a lot of talk about Malik Nabers and his tweets commenting number 9, number 10 with the goat emoji. And he kind of addressed it at the Super Bowl. Not really. He just talked about what he wants in a quarterback and that he really wants a veteran presence in the locker room. And, over the last few weeks, have a new appreciation for Malik Nabers. I think that he has really matured. And I think that it's shown most recently in the last couple of weeks. And I say that for a few reasons, but the biggest one being this interview that he did during the Super Bowl week. And he really talked about the importance of veterans in the locker room, whether it's a quarterback. He specifically mentioned the quarterback, but as a whole. And he talked about wanting to learn from veterans and that he feels that he has to learn a lot, and learning from a veteran quarterback is really important. And that's something that he's willing to do. And to hear that from someone who, all things considered, had a really great year. Over 1,000 yards receiving, smashed the Giants rookie reception record. He's nominated for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Yes, the Giants suck and they had the worst season in a really long time, but Malik Nabers didn't. And the fact that he came out of that and the only thing he's saying is, I need to be better. I want to learn. Someone asked him to grade his rookie year and he said a C. These are the players that I want on this football team. I want players who want to improve, who want to do better, who think that they can always improve. And I have a real newfound respect for him, and I really appreciate him for that. I need that to rub off on the 51 other players on the roster, and maybe 50. The two players I'm not including in that are Brian Burns, because he played week in and week out when he certainly didn't have to. He played through injuries and worked his ass off, and Dexter Lawrence. And I do think that you could add someone like Bobby Okereke in there. I think Andrew Thomas, like, okay, maybe it's not 50, but you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of the veterans feel like that, and they're disappointed that the season went off the rails, and they're disappointed that they lost, and maybe they still have hope and belief in the coaching staff, which I hope that they do. But to hear it from a rookie, I hope as a fan, you guys feel like I do, that, you know, I want players who are never satisfied, especially when you come off the year that you had. Like, I don't want anyone saying that, you know, like fucking Dable says week in and week out, oh, we had a good practice. Did you? And my hair is blonde. Come on. I want people to be in tune with reality, and that's that we have a hell of a lot to do. And we have a hell of a lot to improve upon. And anyway, Malik Nabers, I applaud your maturity. I think it has really, really shown up in the second half of this season and the last few weeks. And I love that about him. So happy for him. Let's end it there. So like I said, make sure you subscribe, because end of the week, we are going to be talking Mets. And don't worry, guys, my Yankee fans, next week, I'm having on Russ, and we are going to talk all about the Yankees too. So before we know it, it's going to be spring training, and oh my God, we are less than 2 months away from opening day. So it's all happening. And we are about a month away from free agency. So as always, lots to discuss. Please rate, review, subscribe, share with a friend. I will be back later this week. Thank you so much for listening. Talk to you soon.